Walmart Express Delivery can get what you need delivered in as fast as an hour. Whether it's baby formula when you're down to the last scoop, pet food before the bowl runs empty, batteries for a dead remote, or a last-minute gift, it is handled. Try Walmart Express Delivery today and get free delivery with promo code EXPRESS. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum. Subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, when a San Diego police officer is found dead in her bathroom, it's left to her colleagues to investigate the case. Did their actions protect a suspect or protect the victim? We'll discuss the podcast One of Their Own from KPBS. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband, and sometimes the love of my life. Always the love of my life. Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
It's like, are we going to have a discussion about something?
No.
All right.
Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, you too, babe. It's your favorite day of the year.
It is.
Are you going to go to your Irish bar alone again like you did last time?
Irish bar alone? Last time? Did I do that? What do you mean?
You went to the Wild Rover without me.
That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I remember.
You still remember.
I'm still sore about it.
I guess I'm not going to be doing that.
Not alone.
Not alone.
Also with us, private investigator.
I wasn't alone.
Oh, shit. Certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, it is our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy, host of Rip Current, More Like Ancient Phalians, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hola from Fias, Rebecca.
Amazing.
Fireworks. Is that Valencia celebration of something where it just gets loud?
Yeah, it's a celebration of something. It's like a 3-week long festival. We're entering the final week where the kids have school off. I think a lot of businesses are closed.
Wow.
So just to give you a sense of things, so there's an incredible number of beer tents that are open around the city, just in roads that are closed off to have beer tents. They're these sculptures, and they're made out of, I don't know whether it's like plastic or some kind of foam or whatever, but some of them, they're all like big. Some of them are huge. Yeah. Like the biggest one in the square that's in front of the city hall, I would guess it's about 80 or 90 feet tall. And it appears to be Charlie Chaplin dressed in a World War I uniform, holding a butterfly with little hearts emerging from his head. But there was some other stuff to it that they still hadn't put on yesterday.
Just saying.
No, it's clearly not Hitler. He has too much of a little glint in his eye. But there are these things, and they're mostly, I would guess, between like 15 and 30 feet high and big all around the city. They all burn on Thursday except for one, which is saved. Wow. There are all these like pop-up churro shops, which are like, it's fried dough essentially, all over the city. And then just people walk around with fireworks and firecrackers and sort of M80 style things and just throwing them around.
Walking around these giant flammable things. Yeah. Okay, cool.
And they're just throwing them around in the street. I mean, it sounds like there's a war going on. And then there's also music. There's a lot of people dressed up in like traditional Spanish dress from like, I would guess like the 1800s. It's very fun. Like, I don't know if you can hear right now, but there is a band marching down my street. There's some guys like wailing on the drums. I don't hear anybody singing, but often there are people singing. It's. Can you hear this?
No,
can't. No.
Is this your new
good.
place, Toby? Or are you still in the old place?
Yeah, this is a new place.
Okay.
So the mic is like sophisticated enough, I guess, not to pick up this stuff, but I've got my headphones on. It's pretty loud in here.
Wow.
So anyway, that's what's going on with FIAS. Thursday is like the big day, I believe, where they burn all the statues. And then there's like this huge fireworks thing. There are fireworks at 2:00 in the afternoon, at midnight every day. The 2:00 ones aren't so much about the visuals, it's the percussion. And they happen like half a kilometer from us. So it's just like, I mean, it sounds like you're under bombardment. So it's pretty weird. It seems pretty fun. And yeah, that's what's going on.
When we went to Cologne last fall, they were telling us they have a thing like that, a big festival. It lasts like 2 weeks, and people take off of school, and people do it, and they drink all day.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you physically?
Give me more shit about St. Patrick's Day.
How do
Go
you
ahead.
physically? You don't drink all day.
Okay.
You've
sure.
done
You
that
can't
the
drink
entire
all
time
day
I've
if you
known
don't start in the morning, Rebecca.
That's
It's
right.
true.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
True. That's true. I just don't know how you physically drink that much beer. Like physically, it's very hard for me to imagine.
People are putting in the effort. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You don't drink beer, you rent it.
Yeah, exactly. That's very funny.
Yeah.
I like that, Kevin.
Thank you.
So, Kevin, this is Monday's podcast.
It is.
What's coming up on Thursday's program?
On Thursday, we're going to talk about the spy thriller series from Peacock. It's called Ponies, and it stars Emilia Clarke.
Yes.
Mike Khaleesi.
Emilia Clarke and the girl from White Lotus season 2.
Haley Lou Richardson is who you're talking about.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Okay. So that's him. It's a buddy comedy thriller thing. I don't know how to describe it, but we'll talk about it on Thursday.
In White Lotus, she played the one who ran off with Leo Woodhall, and he was going to kill her, and then he didn't change her mind because she was so charming. Remember?
Yes.
He was scary. All right. And real life, he's dating Megan Fahey from White Lotus season 2.
Okay.
A little hot goss for you guys.
All right.
Really?
Well.
Yes, in real life.
Are they
a
roughly the
couple.
same age? They don't seem that way.
She might be a little bit older. I don't know. But they look cute together. He's having his stars on the rise, and so is hers. So apparently they met on that show and they've been together ever since. Isn't that sweet?
It is. Yeah.
Interesting.
Although she's cheating on her show husband with him. So.
Okay, this is way too much fucking going on here. We need to talk about the podcast
All right.
instead.
Should we talk about the podcast
Yeah,
we're supposed to be talking
let's
about?
do that. Yeah.
Okay. Leading off.
On New Year's Eve, she went to her older sister's house. They put waves in her long hair, painted her lips red to match her floor-length, sparkling dress, hung fake diamonds in her ears.
When San Diego police discovered fellow officer Ciara Estrada dead in her bathroom, they determined she shot herself with her own gun. At a New Year's party the night before, Estrada got drunk, fought with her boyfriend, and made many references to self-harm.
Eric left me and told me to go. He said I should just not live anymore. I'm not worth it.
Then she said she was by a cliff and thought she should jump off because nobody wanted her around. Because Eric didn't want her around.
But Estrada's family say police didn't go deep enough, claiming investigators were too quick to lay the blame on her. They say Estrada's tumultuous relationship with another cop was never explored. They believe the department protected the man who, directly or indirectly, is responsible for her death.
I will tell you flat out to your face and anybody that my daughter did not kill herself. She did not kill herself.
In the podcast One of Their Own from KPBS, host Katie Hyson explores how the San Diego Police Department investigated the 2017 death of their officer. It looks into claims that Estrada was either shot by the fellow cop who was her boyfriend or that her volatile romance drove her to suicide. It also asks what responsibility the department might have when two of its employees are in a problematic relationship. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from One of Their Own. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So Kevin, I have one thing I want to get out of the way before we talk about this podcast.
Yeah.
If you went and interviewed Ciara's parents, would you or would you not separate them and interview them separately?
Okay, so we recently had in Hush 2, we had the husband who wouldn't stop talking when the wife was being interviewed. And here we have the wife who will not stop talking while her husband is being interviewed.
So these weren't traditional signs of someone who is not thinking of the future. She was thinking of the future.
Yeah.
She left there was no
2 nights
note.
before she died. She
and then,
was grocery shopping.
And it's like
relentless.
Right. Yeah, right. Again, it's like, we need to separate you two if this is going to work. However, I will say that I seem to learn more about their dynamic listening to the interruptions than what they were saying. It sort of painted a picture of who they actually are. And then that becomes important as we're trying to reconcile their claims of police misconduct and homicide and things like that.
Yeah. So, Laura, at the heart of this podcast is a sort of surface exploration of Ciara's relationship with her boyfriend at the time of her death. And we learned that she was really inexperienced and that she was in this relationship with this guy who sounds, by all accounts, to be a super douche.
Yeah.
What did you think of how the podcast handled that and what we learned?
Yeah, so I thought that was actually one of the parts of the relationship dynamics of the people involved in this that kind of stuck out to me, because to me, like, thinking about somebody that's going to be a police officer and doing the type of work that she was doing as a police officer, I found it really interesting that, like, she was a virgin going into this, and this was like her first real boyfriend relationship. So I think there was a level of, her being naive and maybe a little bit immature, which, it was great that she had that viral video where she was being kind to an unhoused person that was loitering.
The female cops are always much nicer, and I've been taping asshole cops for the past week, and you're the first person who was nice.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we can't all, police the same way. It's all discretion. It's all, for me, talking to people is a big thing, and the way you talk to people is a big thing.
We hear about her being kind, and in this era of policing where we're often hearing about, police using too much force, we're hearing about her setting herself apart as different. But then in the context of this relationship with her fellow officer, who is a total ass, we hear that, this is really her first relationship, her first everything in a relationship. So I think my takeaway from that was, you're dealing with somebody who's doing a very adult job that has a lot of very serious situations. But at the heart of it, you're also dealing with somebody who doesn't have a lot of real world experience in certain areas. So there was a bit of a disconnect with her in terms of, I think, where she was at kind of emotionally. And there was just sort of a disconnect there for me in hearing about her.
One of the things I think the podcast sort of failed to explore was the prevalence of abusive men in the police department. It is like a theme that we hear about again and again and again, and there are stats that kind of bear it out, but also that police culture has become kind of accustomed to volatile relationships, to sort of their employees being in relationships that are like this. And of course, the workplace isn't where you deal with those relationships, but in this instance, his relationship was with another cop. So they were both known to their colleagues. And one of the things that troubles me too is that the podcast didn't really explain the dynamics of a relationship like that. It sort of left it as she was participating in the abuse as well. At least I think a certain person could walk away from it and hear that, right? And there's something there that I felt like was a missing piece. I know they couldn't speak with him, but there are themes outside of him as a person that I think they could have gone into. Toby, what do you think about that? What do you think about how the podcast dealt with this allegedly abusive relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I guess sometimes it's hard to sort of envision somebody who's hasn't listened to a lot of true crime stuff listening to a podcast like this, and sort of what's not included and what is included. Because there is, like, a lot of this is about coercive control, right? Like that's the sort of nature of this relationship. And they do talk about things that are indicative of that kind of relationship without pointing out that that's the case, unless I'm forgetting something. But, there's especially that sort of fateful party where she's highly emotional in all this. And then Eric's like, well, this is why I didn't bring her out in public.
Right. Horrible. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And that right there is just, it seems like it's just classic coercive control behavior. It's like, she's being crazy. This is why I have to do what I do. Surely you can understand by looking at this. But I don't think they contextualize it very much. And maybe you're supposed to draw that conclusion for yourself. But it seems like that plays out a lot. Like the people who, like her family members and people talk about her friends. I think they talk about this one wedding that he accompanied Ciara to. And like the people at the wedding were like, this guy's a fucking loser. And then she has to kind of defend him to these people. And again, it's another sort of coercive control thing. It's like she can't let that chink in her armor sort of expose that relationship because it is abusive. They do kind of consistently make this point that nobody has accused him of being physically abusive. They probably have to say that just to cover their ass. But regardless, it's an abusive relationship. And sort of, I think the common wisdom about abusive relationships is that they tend to become more abusive rather than less abusive as time goes on. And that I think is, sort of the case for the fact that she may have been murdered. I think they're trying to make that case without opening themselves up to legal action.
Yeah, I had questions about him that I don't know if they tried to explore but didn't. But does he have any complaints against him as a police officer? Were there or were there not? It sounds like there weren't because they didn't mention them. Any calls for domestic situations to where they lived? Are there reasons to believe that this is a pattern with him? This is who he is or not? Because I do think the podcast was fair to him and they couldn't speak to him. But there's no indication that they did more than just sort of get the story from her family and try to figure out what his story was from him, and they couldn't speak to him. Maybe talk to some colleagues, but that's about it. Laura, one of the things that happens in the podcast is we hear the investigators who went to the scene immediately made the suicide determination. And by the way, we should mention that we are going to be talking about the details of her death and whether or not it was a suicide. They made that determination and they treated the scene as such, and they did not treat it as a crime scene, and they threw away the bath mat, et cetera, et cetera. What did you think about that? Was that some sort of attempt to cover things up or something else?
Well, I think we are supposed to believe that it was an effort to cover things up. So I listened to it with that sort of framing and thinking about it. And they made some missteps here. They didn't handle the scene where this happened appropriately. But I think at the end, I kind of came away with, I don't think they were trying to be malicious and protect this other cop. I think they were trying to kind of protect her family and protect her in a way of exposing them to this. So they were like, hey, we're going to take care of you guys. This is really awful. Hey, we don't want you guys to see the blood. This is traumatic. And I think they did things that when you look at it from a different angle seem like, why the fuck did they do that? That, you're taking away something that could have been evidence. You are assuming this is what happened before you've done an autopsy. You're saying you don't need to do an autopsy. You're all these things. But I think it was more kind of a case of they did things improperly because of the situation that this happened to somebody that worked with them.
Yeah, Laura, I agree with you because there are, like you said, some missteps in sort of procedure in the case, or something at least looks like that. But they do seem to me to be harmless errors in the sense that, the weather vane here is spinning very firmly at this being a suicide and not a homicide. And, when we go into the sort of the idea of hidden homicides, later on in the series. But, if you're inclined to believe that something was amiss, do all of these sort of things play into that? Because they could be looked at both ways. Yeah, I do feel like they are, in their minds, doing a favor to the family and a solid by their colleague. And so that, you're right, so you don't have to look at the blood of the scene and things like that. And so it feels like they're trying to do something that's beneficial for them. Now, the thing that we do that's beneficial for you, listener, is offer great stuff on Patreon.
What a great transition, Kevin.
Wow. Is there any way to do that?
No.
There's no way to tastefully...
I think you did it as well as you possibly could going into the business section.
Yes, okay. I will say that...
It could have been a lot worse, put it that way.
I was kind of in a no-win situation.
I had some scenarios in my head that you were going to say that I was like, don't say that. Don't say that.
Right. It's the Kobayashi Maru of transitions into the business section, the no-win situation. Look, if you join us at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media, you'll get all sorts of exclusive content, including the Crime Writers on After Show. Big after show. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Big after show. I mean, figuratively, of course. And we're talking about Laura's colon.
Oh, great. Oh,
God. Laura had a procedure that...
Don't spoil it.
Don't spoil it.
Don't spoil Laura's colon.
I'm just saying, it's going to be a real deep dive.
Okay.
A
rabbit hole, so to speak?
A rabbit hole, yes. We're going all the way in.
Okay.
And then back out again. Speaking of deep dives. An exploration. Speaking of deep dives, Toby Ball has Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. The latest episode, Toby is talking about the Lumumba plot, Other exclusive content includes our advice show, Married with Podcast, and Rebecca's ongoing podcast with Mel Barrett called Something's Off. And the defense has rested in the Corey Richins trial.
Yes.
And so you will be watching this whole next week to see.
Today, final arguments are scheduled in that case. And actually, that case actually has some ties to this one. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. If you join us at the Bricker scale level for just $1 more, you get an exclusive podcast. Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast. And Laura is all about that agility, that doggy style agility. I mean, from real dogs. Wait, what?
Wow. Speaking of.
Yeah. Those dogs have style. That's all he meant. Those dogs have style.
Dogs have style.
That's right.
They do. And you talk to
It's called doggy style.
Talk to a Westminster winner here in New Hampshire.
Yes.
Boy, speaking about people who can talk, I think we've met somebody that matched Laura Bricker. Vocal cord for vocal cord.
Really?
Yeah. If you join us at the Let's Do What We Do level, you get episodes of Crime Writers on early and ad-free. And if you're a deep diver, you are an official sponsor of Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. The next book Toby and his guests are talking about is This House of Grief, the story of a murder trial by Helen Gardner. And Toby, people should be reading that one right now, right?
They should, and so should I.
Okay, that's all we need to know. Look, helping us at Patreon sustains this podcast and it keeps us going. If you want other information and help out the show, hey, do yourself a solid. Sign up for our newsletter at crimewriterson.com. Each week, you'll get a summary of our reviews, Crime Writers On Behind the Scenes, the Crime of the Week, the Post of the Week, the Pet of the Week, and always new merch, which includes our whole line of Tu Gato es Elegante.
Yes.
Merchandise, t-shirts, hats, buttons.
Tote bags.
Tote bags.
Looks great on a tote.
Just go out there and show that one phrase that Toby learned when he moved to Valencia.
That's right.
It's coming handy.
Yeah, and do you know how to say in Spanish, like, it's too loud in my neighborhood because of this crazy festival?
No, but I can ask for bags at the grocery store or something.
Okay,
good.
Perfect.
Good.
Dos bolsos, por favor.
Nice.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, so all of that supporting us at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media.
All right. Does that end our business section, Kevin?
Thus ends the business section.
So, Kevin.
Yes.
Who's our next sponsor?
Yeah, this podcast is sponsored by Quince.
Oh, Quince.
Yeah, these days it's all about choosing quality over quantity, especially when it comes to a wardrobe. So if a piece isn't made well and versatile, well, is it truly worth having? And that's why so many people love Quince. Okay, now I know that the Quince people spend a lot of time working on this copy.
Yes.
And they came up with the thing about quality over quantity.
Yes.
But if you met Rebecca Lavoie, you would get both.
You would get both.
Quality and quantity, because she loves shopping at Quince so much.
I do love it so much.
Can you tell us a little bit about the last thing you purchased from Quince?
Well, Kevin, I have the Luxe Baby Cashmere Cable Knit Cardigan, which you have seen me wear. I have it in 2 colors, and you have seen me wear them, I don't know, like 50 times in the last month. I love wearing them. I don't even wear like a tank top underneath. It's so soft and so cute. Looks great on camera, looks great at work, looks great with jeans. I love these cardigans so much. They are a wardrobe staple, and I will wear them for years to come.
Yeah, you know the thing you're forgetting, though, is that Quince works directly with safe, ethical factories to cut out the middlemen, so you're not paying for a brand markup or those fancy retail stores. It's just quality clothing.
Yep. So right now, go to quince.com/crime for free shipping and 365-day returns. That's a full year to wear it and love it, and you will. Now available in Canada, too.
Bonjour, hi.
Don't keep settling for clothes that don't last. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
Walmart Express Delivery can get what you need delivered in as fast as an hour. Whether it's baby formula when you're down to the last scoop, pet food before the bowl runs empty, batteries for a dead remote, or a last-minute gift, it is handled. Try Walmart Express Delivery today and get free delivery with promo code EXPRESS. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum. Subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
When you need to send the perfect rose bouquet, only one brand can say they've been the floral authority for 50 years. 1-800-Flowers. Why should you trust 1-800-Flowers? They hand-select every stem to ensure top quality. And with nationwide delivery, smiles and satisfaction are 100% guaranteed. And right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses, we'll double it at no extra cost. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Order today at 1-800-Flowers.com/SXM. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/SXM.
So, Toby, I was thinking about you this week when I was watching some of the Corey Richards trials. This is a woman who's on trial in Utah for the alleged murder of her husband by administering him fentanyl. And then the question is, was it an overdose? Did he die by suicide or did she kill him? And again, more so speaking to the heavy drug use, but sometimes adding to suicide, you get a lot of people saying, he would never. This person would never. They had a, whatever. And in this podcast, we hear Ciara had a fridge full of groceries. She had a dog that she loved. She would never. And we just talked about this recently, right?
Yeah, it's you're trying to make logical sense of a suicide, find a logical argument why it couldn't be that way based on their activities beforehand. And to me, it doesn't seem like suicide really works that way. The fact that you went and bought groceries doesn't preclude sort of profound depression or impulsive action or whatever. I mean, maybe it's some kind of view into their mind and thoughts, but this idea that, she couldn't have done it because of this just seems like a misunderstanding of how these things work, like regardless of how well you know somebody. And I could see it's, you're like grasping for something and you're looking for signs that it wasn't that way. And these seem like clear signs, but I think history has shown that you can't really rely on that it's not accurate.
Not everybody spends a lot of time planning and laying out when they are going to die by suicide, and therefore don't go grocery shopping. That's not something I've
one
heard
of the things that we've learned from people who have survived attempts is just how impulsive their action was. That a lot of them said like 15 minutes sooner, they were not planning to do this. And unlike, they put gas in the car or whatever thing that sort of implies that they were thinking that they would be around a lot longer. There are a whole bunch of red flags here saying that she is like in crisis, which, I mean, certainly given the way that this turned out, was certainly like, those were the things that we really should be focusing on, taking away the fact that she was inebriated, the fact that, she'd been in a really hot argument, and all the things that she was saying that, that were kind of, see you forever, or those kinds of things. That when this happens the next day, it can be unexpected, but you can't be surprised by it.
Right.
So I don't know. That's how Toby feels. That's how I feel. I don't know, Laura, if you have a different take on that.
Yeah, Laura, what is your take here? I mean, you understand the family's position. They wish more had been done to explore it. At the end of the day, did you have an opinion as to what's more likely here?
So, and it's hard because you can really feel for the family and they can't accept that this is what's happened. So anything that seems like it wasn't done completely the way that they thought it was going to be done is a sign to them that that isn't what happened, but nobody investigated it, and that she really didn't take her own life. And I honestly, I feel like the podcast was really told from the perspective. I think it tried not to be one-sided, but it felt very one-sided to me. Like it was her family's story. But at the end, I really wasn't swayed that something else had happened to her, that somebody else was involved, to the extent that someone else was involved with her mental health and, this coercive control. Yes. But when you hear the scenario play out this sounds horrible, and I don't want it to sound, insensitive, but it's like she was drunk. They were fighting,
She was telling people, I'm on the edge of a cliff.
Yes. All signs point to she went home and she did this.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's not one of these cases where you're like, oh, I think something else happened here and it was staged. That wasn't what I left with.
Right.
Well,
go ahead, Toby.
Oh, I was just going to say, if I was a member of her family, seeing this relationship, I would assign some level of culpability to him, even if it wasn't.
Talk about that, because the podcast says the family tried to do that, but the podcast doesn't talk about whether or not that is something that can happen, whether or not an abusive partner can be responsible for somebody's suicide.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think these things are complicated, but I think if I was, again, I'm not trying to analyze some kind of legal responsibility, but if she was my sister or cousin or something, and I was witnessing that relationship, and then she ended up deceased, I would want that guy to bear some responsibility, even if it didn't mean legal responsibility or in jail or something, but sort of the moral weight of what happened should be falling on him to a certain extent because of this coercive control relationship that they had and the impact that seems to have clearly had on her mental health. And, as I've said before, like it's a little hard to tell from a podcast, like what the reality is. There's stuff that's left out. There's stuff that, there's all these different factors, but yeah, it's easy to see where your reaction would be. He killed her, and whether it was figuratively or literally, making it literal is sort of the easiest way of kind of handling that. So yeah, it's a frustrating situation because if he didn't do it, he still fucking ruined her life. I mean, he's still, in my mind, culpable for his actions in that relationship. Like, you can't say he caused her. If it was suicide, you can't say he caused her to commit suicide, but he created a situation in which her mental health suffered to the point where that's what potentially ended up happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the piece of this podcast that's actually really worth exploring. Not whether or not this is a homicide, because I don't think there's enough there to really sustain that. But it's about the part whether you can be driven to self-harm through a coercive or emotionally abusive partnership. And if so, then what's the reasonable recourse, right? So what do we do about that? I mean, I think we know,
what happened to that girl, Michelle, what's her face in Massachusetts? She was accused of driving her boyfriend to suicide.
Yeah, right. The I love you now die.
Yes.
One, yeah. I mean, that's explicit though. That's like giving instructions and like there's that case.
Right.
But, like Toby said, like this guy, as far as we know what people say, the relationship was very rough and very, very mean. And
when alcohol was involved,
especially when alcohol was involved. And people are like, well, just because he didn't lay hands on her, as far as we know, doesn't mean it's not an abusive relationship, right? Because it can be very coercive, and that's very difficult. She struggled with that. And she also knew it was a bad relationship, right? Because she said that at certain times. And it's really worth pondering to what, those female cops said about when they would talk amongst themselves,
right?
Especially when it comes to domestic violence issues, that they go and they meet victims and they get in their homes and they look at them up close and they see what's going on and they know when the woman isn't doing the thing in her best interest and when she is, and that even though she has those life lessons, that it's hard for her to see that she is in a similar situation, or maybe she sees all too well and just doesn't know how to get out of it. And in that way, this is a much more conventional story.
Right.
The fact that we have two police officers and an accusation that another cop might have been responsible for shooting another cop, that's unusual. But this whole idea that if one of the people has mental health issues and they're pushed hard enough and far enough, whether it's intentional or not, what happens when they take their own life?
Yeah, this is actually there's themes in this, and also a very famous case that's happening right now, the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case in Massachusetts, where it's complicated, but the relationship between the two people involved is very much a part of it, even though he's not in any way being accused of anything, like in the criminal side of it. There's a whole family court side that's very different. But one of the things that I kept thinking about is the podcast does throw these sort of teases out as to the things that exist that could point to him being involved. And one of them is like, he said he called her at a time that he didn't call her. They can't account for his location at certain times. And I found myself thinking that there's kind of a lack of imagination with some of these things sometimes about entirely different scenarios where she could have died by suicide. Maybe he knew. Maybe he suspected she might, or maybe she told him she was going to and he didn't do anything. Like, there's a lot of ways that he couldn't have pulled the trigger, but also there are reasons why he could have been acting a little bit shady. You know what I mean? Maybe he was embarrassed about the way he treated her that night because people were telling him that he was being a dick and he didn't do anything about it. So there might be some of that there, but I'm just not sure that was explored. Laura, I just want to ask you about this law we hear, the hidden homicide idea that, again, this sort of ties to the Corey Richins case, that somebody could die and police could think it's a suicide, but it's actually a homicide. What did you think of the exploration of that and laws around it?
I was like, okay, cue the Dateline episode, because that's the kind of case you're going to see on Dateline where there legitimately was a staged looking suicide or accidental death that takes a long time to uncover as to what actually happened. I don't think that's what happened here. But I thought that was interesting that there was like this whole organization that was specifically focusing on those type of cases, that they were that prevalent, that there was so many masterminds out there that were able, because that's like something that I don't necessarily think of happening as often in real life as it does in like books or movies. So I thought it was really interesting to hear from that guy that was kind of behind that legislation and working on that other case. Those are hard to prove. That's really hard. And to be able to investigate something like that and show what actually happened when at first blush it really looks like something like somebody took their own life. I thought that was the most interesting part. And as we get into that, I was thinking, okay, could this have gone in the beginning of this podcast structurally? And that would have definitely sort of upped my curiosity factor as I was listening to the events that unfolded in the case that we learned about. Probably.
I always think about a great podcast, I think, like a Dan Taberski podcast, would be a podcast about laws with someone's name attached to them, like Marcy's Law and like all these laws that are like based on somebody's personal experience, and then legislation happens. Because very often these laws seem like so great and they're passed fairly quickly, and it's like a boilerplate bill that's photocopied around state houses around the country, and there end up being unintended consequences that, you know, like Marcy's Law has a lot of unintended consequences about privacy and all sorts of things. And New Hampshire was about to pass it and didn't. Like there's something there, I think, about laws that are just sort of reactive to one scenario. And so that was something that I thought about. But I do think there is something to, not necessarily staged suicides, but times when something happened, but police rushed to judgment because it's easier or faster or easier to assume. There might be something there. I'm not sure.
Walmart Express Delivery can get what you need delivered in as fast as an hour. Whether it's baby formula when you're down to the last scoop, pet food before the bowl runs empty, batteries for a dead remote, or a last-minute gift, it is handled. Try Walmart Express Delivery today and get free delivery with promo code EXPRESS. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum. Subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
You open the fridge. There's nothing there. So what's it going to be? Greasy pizza? Sad drive-through burgers? Dish by Blue Apron is for nights like that. These are the pre-made meals of your dreams. At least 20 grams of protein, no artificial flavors or colors, no chopping, no cleanup, no guilt. Keep the flavor. Ditch the subscription. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today and let us surprise you.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out the podcast, One of Their Own from KPBS. Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for One of Their Own?
I'm going to go mild thumbs down on this. It's hard. I think why I struggle with that, I think, at the heart of this is a story about somebody's loved one who died under circumstances that are still very, very hard for this family to deal with. I get that. I think for me, I didn't feel like this sort of premise at the start of the podcast paid off for me at the end of the podcast. I felt like we heard a lot of information about what we thought might have happened from one perspective, but I didn't necessarily find any investigative evidence to support what that was. So I felt frustrated listening to this. I felt like there were angles that could have been pursued about abusive dynamics and relationships between different police officers, because that does happen. There's a lot of relationships between police officers, how those play out, other cases where that's an issue. So for me, I felt frustrated by this because I felt like, yes, there was a real question here that some people wanted answered. And at the end, I don't really feel like I get any information that swayed what I thought. So it's a mild thumbs down for me.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for one of their own?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Laura was saying, and that I felt, the story itself feels kind of straightforward. So in order to make it like interesting or land or whatever, it felt like taking a look at some of the circumstances or trying to contextualize it within the statistics around sort of domestic abuse among police officers and the reaction to that and stuff like that. It just seemed like there are other things you could have looked at to sort of make the story seem a little more relevant or give you a little insight on it, because there wasn't a ton there and then they didn't make a ton out of it. So, it seemed like maybe it was a project where when they started, it seemed like it might turn out in a different way. And then when they got to the end, what they had wasn't what they were hoping to get, but they also didn't sort of change course and find some other way to make it compelling. So anyway, I'm a thumb sideways.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm also a thumb sideways. This doesn't really do anything bad, doesn't do anything poorly, but I think it's probably limited by, when you look at the topic, what could actually be discovered and what could actually be revealed and be enlightening. And I think that if you as a listener are anticipating a lot of discussion about whether or not this was a homicidal relationship between two police officers versus being enlightened by what we know it actually was, about the difficulties in the relationship, about what is actually a much more conventional situation, which is just emotionally abusive relationships. So beyond having two police officers at the center of this and beyond theories that what was an act of suicide was actually an act of homicide, well, I think that there is something far more interesting to explore. And they touch on it, but they don't really sort of go all the way there as far as, okay, what can we learn about relationships that end up in this way? And also, who is responsible? Are there third parties? Are employers responsible? Are friends responsible? Is the other partner actually responsible? Like, those things I think could have been fleshed out a little more. But as far as like this story going along, I don't know if it really, you're right. I don't think it really like went anywhere and advanced some of those other things, but it wasn't poorly done. So that's why I'm just going to be like a thumb sideways on this.
I was really stuck between mild thumbs down and thumb sideways, and I am landing on mild thumbs down. And I will admit my bias. I am grading on a scale because I work in public media and I have certain expectations for the reporting of public media shops. We listened to another podcast last year, the year before, that also began with a law enforcement suicide and questioning, the circumstances around it. And that ended up being about the culture inside of the prison system, right? And all these like very serious issues that the reporters like super dug into. And I loved that podcast. And when this started, I was kind of excited because even though it had a similar theme, I was like, this is a public radio reporting. It's going to go somewhere. And instead, what I ended up hearing was something that was one of a couple of scenarios could have happened. One, it was kind of immature and too focused on the family, because there's this thing that's sort of like greener journalists do, where they do the obligatory all about the family and all about the victim episode, but then you can tell kind of through it that they're going to worry what the family thinks when they hear the final product. And this sort of sounded a little bit like that to me. Another possibility is that this thing was legaled to death, and that anything they could have put in there that would have been interesting, they had a legal review and they made them cut it, and that their station wasn't either brave enough to put it in there, or that it didn't hold water enough, in which case should the story go to I'm not saying that's what happened, it's just a possibility. And another possibility is just that they're not experienced in making podcasts, and this is a story they wanted to tell. But where it really misses is it's like a rock skipping the surface of a story. I was like, this is going to be about the culture of policing and abuse. No, it wasn't. This is going to be about coercive control and abusive relationships. No, it wasn't. This is going to be about the nature of suicide itself, because it was something we talk about again and again and again. There are really a lot of misconceptions about how someone can end up dying by suicide. And I think more often than not, it's not something that's long and planned out and that people and their family would expect them to do. I think that that's something we hear again and again and again. And that's also not explored. So Given that we have an intriguing premise that doesn't deliver, and the so-called supporting evidence for the alternative theory ends up being as thin as paper, I was very disappointed by this podcast, so I have to give it a mild thumbs down. It sounded good, though. I mean, I will say I was going to give it props for sounding good. It sounds like a public radio podcast. It's well made. But yeah, I was very disappointed in it. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the Crime
of the Week.
South Korean officials thought they were pretty smart when they seized a cache of Bitcoin from a tax evader. But when they posted photos of the evidence, someone was able to steal the password. The press release from National Tax Service included a picture of the captured cold wallets, as well as paperwork that included the crypto's seed phrases. It's with these mnemonic devices that anyone can recreate the wallet's master key and conduct ongoing transactions, even if they don't have the device. After paying a transfer fee, the eagle-eyed pirate moved about 5 million in PRTG tokens, which is now virtually impossible to recover. Because they posted the seed phrase online, the list of suspects is endless, though experts say liquidating that amount of crypto would raise red flags that might draw attention to the hacker. Meanwhile, tax authorities are left holding a very cold wallet. So panel, this was a pretty big oopsie by law enforcement. What is the next big mistake that South Korean officials will make? What do you think, Laura Bricker?
I think the next time they get cash as evidence, they're going to put it in the locker with a sticky note with the password so they don't forget how to get back in and get the cash out.
What do you think, Toby? What's the next big mistake that South Korean officials are going to make?
They're going to get high on their own supply.
What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, they're going to be like, hey, man, hold my keys while I go get some beer.
Yeah. All right, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you and say hello on the internet, how can they find you there?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Instagram and Blue Sky.
What about you, Toby Ball? How can you be found?
At TobyBall603 on Instagram and at TobyBallNH on Blue Sky.
And Kevin?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
You can follow me everywhere at Reb Lavoie, and I am re-exploring Threads thanks to our friend Ronald Young Jr., who says conversations about TV are lit over there, so I'm going to check it out. But I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And of course, you should listen to Something's Off on YouTube. Get episodes early and ad-free and everything else we make at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons, and our editor is the terrific Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin. This show was recorded in the Caitlin Rogers Project Studio, also known as Studio
C.
The closet
in our Hampshire basement
where we also talk over one another
over a disturbing amount of
at
time.
a disturbing amount of time. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch
you later.
To be clear, Kevin, I thought you were saying the dog was more talkative than Laura Bricker. That's what I thought.
No, the lady didn't even breathe. I couldn't even ask questions. It was insane.
I love that.
The behind the scenes thing is that Laura and I are struggling with the production because of this one. Because she didn't take a breath.
She didn't take a breath, and I was trying to break it up, so I kept putting pauses in and putting music, but now it's just It
ended up being all music. That's not your fault, Laura.
Yeah.
We appreciate you struggling to make it happen.
In crime media. Walmart Express Delivery can get what you need delivered in as fast as an hour. Whether it's baby formula when you're down to the last scoop, pet food before the bowl runs empty, batteries for a dead remote, or a last-minute gift, it is handled. Try Walmart Express Delivery today and get free delivery with promo code EXPRESS. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum. Subject to availability. Restrictions apply.